Bless up, everyone. It's Karen with Naturally with Karen, and I have some shocking insights today. Some of these are new to me. I live in the state of Minnesota, and Minnesota is known to be the land of 10,000 lakes. Lots and lots of nature and trees. Oh my goodness, we have the most beautiful nature here with eagles and hawks. Hawk Ridge is just not too far from me, about 10-15 minutes away. It's just such a beautiful place. Everywhere, on Mama, which is nature, is beautiful. But I'm going to bring you some shocking insights today that while I was standing in line with other people getting food, I heard, and then I had some questions while I was standing in line. We're all waiting in line to buy food or to pump our gas, and here comes a beautiful white butterfly. So we'll look up that omen on this one, okay? So Minnesota has all these lakes, and one of the agencies that operates over the lakes and the wildlife is called the D as in dog, N as in Nancy, R as in racing, the DNR. So the DNR is the Department of Natural Resources. And so the DNR makes sure that the natural resources are managed and cared for. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. But as I was standing in line, and people were talking about fish, and they were talking about how a specific kind of fish was caught in a lake. And so this is how the whole story started, where I got the shocking insights. We want to know what's going on, because when you know what's going on, you can do something about it, okay? So here's what's going on. I'm getting a notification here. I'm blocking a little bit. So she said, yep, she caught this kind of a fish, and the DNR was like, we want to know how you got that fish. And she said, well, I put my canoe in the water and I got that fish, and that's the fish I got, and I'm showing it to you. I didn't do anything weird. And so that's what sparked the conversation about these shocking insights. Maybe you know this already, and maybe you're going to be like, oh, like me, and you're going to be aghast with what? Shock, horror, repulsion. You're going to wonder, what kind of a system would have thought about this? Do fish also think and feel? Well, I'm sure they do. So do plants, so do trees and rocks and humans and cows and sheep and everything. So, while we might fish for food, or we might be meat eaters or plant eaters or whatever you are, we always want to make sure that we're also not being abusive. You can hunt, like many of the people that I love dearly are hunters. Many people I love dearly feed their dogs meat, as I have done for many, many years. But being abusive is the key point here. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the comments that you make as I get going. So since the DNR was involved, the Department of Natural Resources, because this other type of fish was found in the lake, this conversation happened. They said, sure, the DNR typically goes in there and clears out many of these lakes. And I said, connect. Oh, there we go. We're reconnecting. Okay. I said, what do you mean clears out the lake? And they said, well, they do it in one of many different ways. And I was like, what? And they said, sure. Well, the DNR goes. Bless up, Pam. Good to see you. I'm talking about the DNR and the shocking insights today. And you might already know this, Pam. You can leave some comments down below. So I was standing in line for food, and this conversation started, and I'm just getting into it. So the DNR goes in, and what it does is it clears out a lake and restocks it with the kind of fish they want. It could be trout, it could be whatever kind of fish they perceive as being, viable and a good fit. And good fit for what? People that are fishing and people that want to go to that lake and fish. And so in order to clear the lake, they were using one of three methods, and this is where the shocking insights come in. One is that they were using a form of explosive called thermite, Thermite, I believe, and they just, cause an explosion in the lake. The other one, that's number one. Number two is that they deposit a chemical in the lake that kills off all the fish, and then they go by in their boats and they scoop up all the dead fish that float and, get rid of the fish, right? And number three, that's totally shocking to me, is that they take rods and stick them in the water that are connected to a big battery, and they shock the lake, and they shock the fish in the lake so that the fish will end up dead. I'm absolutely repulsed by this, and I know that a lot of people could possibly come on and say, hey, look, this was really necessary because the lake got really stagnant and it's a man-made lake, and so the fish started getting, and we started getting unnatural aquatic species in the lake, and we had this horrible problem with this unnatural species in the lake. And I don't know all the terminology, but I know one thing, and I posted about it on my Facebook page, This Rise. You might call it This Morning, if that's what I mean by that. Is that ever since European systems have tried to dominate the medical, the healing, calling us witches, relegating us to being crazy, taking over birthing and medicalizing birthing, and taking over the stem cells and cord clamping and overkill with a lot of medical practices. We haven't been any better. We've been a lot worse. A lot worse. And so I never imagined in my teens and 20s and even my 30s, I never imagined that at 58, I would be on YouTube and saying, I've been healing people for 35 years, and let me tell you about it, because I just imagined in my mind as I grew and grew into this, that this is something everyone would know and understand because it's common sense. Common sense isn't quite so abundant as it used to be with the elders, and for really good reason. It's by design or by agenda, however you want to say it. We don't shock and kill fish in a lake and scoop them all up because our children swim in that lake. We don't do these things to waters because they're unhealthy and unwise, okay? These are the waters of the earth in lakes and streams and rivers and creeks and estuaries and oceans. And what we're doing is atrocious. I cannot believe that people do not understand that you do not go to pay to watch whales and dolphins and fish in containments. That's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for us to be showing that kind of supremacy over the rest of the beings on the earth. So, back in the day, so to speak, we didn't have grocery stores, so absolutely you might have gone along a river and eaten some fish and cooked the fish by the side of the river, but that's not what most people are doing today. They want to go out and fish because it's reminiscent of days gone by. Bless up, Pam. I don't know if you're kind of losing your connection. I've seen you kind of go off and on here. So, Pam, have you heard of thermite shocking? Oh, I'm looking at these beautiful birds, and they're actually pecking at the paint, which I'm quite sure is lead paint. So, there goes more lead exposure for these beautiful chickadees that are out here. So, have you heard of doing this to use chemicals or shocking the lake with two metal poles that they put into the water connected to a battery, or using thermite explosives, kind of like dynamite, thermite? And I'm not an expert on any of these things. I don't really know that much about thermite. I'm just looking at this gorgeous chickadee. Oh my gosh. When you're teaching your children, just like I learned fairly recently, chickadee dee 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 chickadee dee 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 dee, they make that kind of sound, so they got called chickadees. I learned that from Anthony. So, what do you think? Have you heard of this, Pam? Can you write me something down below? What do you think? How do we shock fish in the lake so we can clean it up and make it nice for people that want entertainment, people that want to come and fish and, you know, go home with their trout or whatever and have everything clean and manicured and sterile. It would have been that way if we would have left it alone. Okay, it would have been like that. So this is a short live stream. I'm going to go take my bananas and peel them and get them put into bags, because that's part of my plant-based food preparation. And I'm going to get the dogs out for a walk and get on with my day. All right, thank you so much for joining me.